Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Michelle. Today I am giving you my pretty late January wrap-up. It's been a month. I'm just, I'm here. That's all that matters. So for January, I read 10 books. I DNF'd 2, but I still count them because I'm that person. So I'm just gonna go and talk to you about the books I read, what ratings I gave them. Let's go. The first book that I read for January 2020 was a reread because I was really nervous about the book that I was reading for the first book of 2020 to be good. So I picked my favorite book of 2018, and that is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. I reread this and I gave it 5 stars. The premise of this book is that Tanner is a out bisexual teen and he moves to super conservative Utah where it's a lot of Mormons, and he puts himself back in the closet, and then he goes into his writing program and meets Sebastian, and they kind of start a thing, except Sebastian is like super Mormon, and I just really like the blend of LGBTQ and religion. I've never read that before. Also, I'm not religious at all, so the fact that I like this is astounding, but I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. We are actually reading this for my book club in June for Pride Month, so I just got a head start and reread it, and I hope everyone likes it. Yeah, so this was the first book that I read for January 2020, and it was a good one. The next book that I read was an ARC before the actual book came out, and I was very excited to get an ARC of this, and that is The Map from Here to There by Emery Lord. This is the sequel from The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. Okay, so I love The Start of Me and You. I've read it several times, given it 5 stars every time, and I did not love this. I initially gave it 4 stars, I think because of the nostalgia, and then ended up like 2 minutes later going back to Goodreads and giving it 3 stars because the whole point of The Start of Me and You is that Paige really, her character develops, she becomes more independent and everything, and I just felt like, I don't know what Emery Lord was doing with this book, but Paige completely reverted back to the beginning of who she was in The Start of Me and You. So I didn't love it. I didn't love the relationship, like Max and Paige forever, and I just, like, it wasn't focused on that at all. This was not my favorite. I'm really disappointed. It's a 3 star, which isn't good, it isn't bad, it's just, it is what it is. But after loving The Start of Me and You so much, I am very disappointed in the sequel. I know a lot of my other friends who love The Start of Me and You really love this, and I didn't. I feel like Paige, just like, her character went backwards. Everything sucked. I hated the relationship. This is not what I wanted from the sequel. The next book that I read was for my book club, and that is The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. I DNF'd this about 250 pages in, and it's like 300 pages, so I was almost there and I just couldn't do it. Book is supposedly a historical fiction, magical realism-ish book, but it was weird. So it's like set in the 40s, I believe, but there's only like mention of war when it seems necessary for the plot. Otherwise it feels like it could be set today. And the premise of this book is that these 2 children move to this town where something disappears every 7 years. And so they're right on the cusp of when something is about to disappear, and it disappears. And then also, I didn't finish it, but from my book club discussion, something to do with Shakespeare, which is like fucking crazy. So, I don't know, the consensus of my book club was that 2 people liked it, and the rest, like 6 of us, were like, no. So that's, yeah, so that's how it went. I didn't finish it, so I don't have much to say about it, but yeah. The next book that I read for my new book club, and also DNF'd, is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So when I hauled this, I said that I got it for the hype, and I 100% got it for the hype. I made it 150 pages in, and The writing, not for me. The plot, I have no idea what's going on. Any Leigh Bardugo book that I have read, I have not loved. I'm like the only person ever who did not like Six of Crows. I didn't even finish the first book of the Grisha trilogy. I am on hold for my library for the audiobook, and it says I'll get it in about 6 months. So in 6 months, when I listen to the audiobook, I'll decide. I feel like it will be better for me in audiobook form. But sitting here reading her writing really doesn't do it for me. Leigh Bardugo is a no for me. That's not a popular opinion. I don't like Leigh Bardugo's writing at all. So hopefully listening to it will be better for me. So we'll see. This was a DNF, no star rating. I don't know. The next book that I read was The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray. Okay, so once again I finished it and I gave it 4 stars, and then 2 minutes later I went back to Goodreads and I changed it to 3 stars. Because it wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was just for me. The premise of this book is that the main character is like a bad boss bitch, and I really liked her, and she gets ghosted, and then she gets ghosted by her date, and then she ends up having to work with him, and I thought that it would actually have one of my least favorite tropes, and that is miscommunication, but there was no miscommunication. He cleared it up and she believed him, and I'm so glad that was taken care of, because I probably would have closed the book if that was the deal, but it wasn't, so I'm very happy about that. I don't know, there was a lot going on from both perspectives, and it just, like, I struggled to care and keep picking it up, and there wasn't a lot of romance, and I would just like romance or romance books and not all the other crap, and maybe that's just me, but I gave this 3 stars. It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. So the next book that I read was a buddy read with Amber from Amber Innoface. I don't actually know if she buddy read it with me, but I read it, and that is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. I loved this book. This book was so good. It is considered magical realism, yes. So the premise is that these twins live on this island by the sea, and they have magical powers, and the one twin doesn't have her powers yet before she turns 18, so she just thinks like she's a dud. And then it also has to do with this bird, and it also has to do with sexual assault, and it also has to do with family, and this was just fucking good, and it's super short. I got through it in 1 day, and I did not think I was gonna like this, because magical realism is hit or miss for me, and I didn't like the disappearances, which was also magical realism, but this was amazing. I gave this 5 stars. I was supposed to read this last year because it was Chelsea's favorite book of 2018, and I never read it, and I finally read it, and I agree that it is amazing and would reread. So good. Loved it. Next book that I read was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I read this because the new movie was coming out and it looked feminist as fuck, and I was like, how did I not know that this was like super feminist? Because I don't like classics. Anyway, this is a huge edition. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get through this. So I listened to the audiobook. It took me about a week, and it was fine. Give it 3 stars. The things that happened, like the big things that happened in this book, I already knew were happening. So I wasn't like, oh my god, this is brand new information. No, this was information that I already knew. The other stuff that I didn't know, I didn't need to know because it was so boring. So like, if you have seen the movie, the main things are, I'm not gonna spoil you, even though this book is like 150 years old. So big things happen. There's like 3 or 4 big things. I knew all those things. I watched the movie. It was good. I don't know. I don't like classics. So me giving this 3 stars is pretty good. So I read it. Okay. The next book that I read is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is a romance book set in Alaska, and it was fine. I remember, I think last year or 2018, all the like romance booktubers were like yelling about this book, so I was like, oh, I'm finally gonna read it, it's gonna be great. It was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I believe my review on Goodreads was this was like a Hallmark movie, except Hallmark movies are better, and I stand by that. This was definitely like a Hallmark movie. Spoiled girl from big city moves to a little Alaskan town to help her father, falls in love with someone so predictable, boring. I hated the love interest. Why would you let anyone treat you like that? Please, if you have read this, don't let any man treat you like how this dude treated this woman. It was ridiculous, and girls like this book. I don't know. It was not for me. 3 stars. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm so heated about it. Maybe 2 stars, but we'll see. I didn't like it. There's a sequel coming out. Will not be reading it. The next book that I read was Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I love this. I gave this 4 stars, and not to be punny, but I gave this 4 stars because it was a little cheesy. And if you've read the book, that is a pun. But it was just so, it was like a tad cheesy, especially at the end, and I was like, ugh, cringing. But otherwise, it was a great romance. It was super contemporary, and it had lots of pop culture references, which I really like. And I surprisingly love this, but 4 stars because it was cheesy. But if you're looking for like a light contemporary romance with pop culture references, this is for you. Basically, the premise is this big burger corporation is stealing recipes from a little mom and pop shop, and they have a Twitter war, and it's actually teenagers behind the Twitter handles, and that would probably never happen in real life, but the fact that happened in this book, I believed it, so it was good. 4 stars. And the last book that I read this month was Don't Date Rosa Santos by Nina Moreno. I listened to this on audiobook, and it was fine. This was the second book I read this month that the father died in like a boat accident. That was weird. That was Summer and Salt as well. So I don't know if I was having like whiplash or whatever, but it's kind of a romance, but it's mostly about family dynamics. This girl really wants to go to Cuba to know about her family history, and her grandmother doesn't want her to go to Cuba, and then things happen. She falls in love, kinda. She gets like fixes her relationship with her mother, and it was fine. It wasn't the best contemporary I've ever read. It wasn't super original. I was okay. I was entertained when I was listening to it, but that's about it. So yeah. So those are all the books I read for January. I read 10 books, DNF 2, but I am going to read Ninth House in 6 months whenever my friggin' hold comes in. So yeah. So thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!